I'm certain everybody's read about it, but the systems do need a look at, and this is important for at least the next decade.
Yeah, I think we've all been reading and hearing about this and have a great deal of concern about its impact if we don't move now. I did have one more question, Joshua.
Yes.
Joshua Sams, who is intern in Councilmember Robinson's office. And I almost forgot you.
On page I, why $13 million was withdrawn from the general obligation commercial paper fund? $13 million withdrew from the general obligation commercial paper fund.
Well, in a general obligation fund, I mean, we have a number of different categories: street and bridge, library, and periodically they have construction needs. And it just so happens that during the month that $13 million was needed to do construction work for general fund type activities.
Do you know if the majority was based primarily on the flooding?
I'm not sure, but I can check and see.
Okay.
I don't think any of that would have been related to flooding. That would have been related to ongoing construction.
This is ongoing. That is when council authorizes a project, the departments will get it and then begin to spend the money. And what we have is, this is a line of credit. And so what we do is we've pre-negotiated a couple $100 million in access to banks who are willing to give us that money up front prior to us throwing it out long term. So this is our short-term variable debt. We go there and we say, okay, we aggregate this amount. You need how much today? We dole that out to you, and then when it reaches a certain level that's efficient, because each of these deals can be expensive with the lawyers and all this other stuff, we will put all that together in one deal rather than having to go for a $13 million deal, which is just not efficient. We negotiate a line of credit. So as their spending needs comes due, we just issue you the money and pay it off rather than trying to do a deal for $13 million. That's too small for a city our size. So we aggregate construction projects up. So the 3 or 4 funds that have access to a line of credit spend a lot of money before we actually ever. So this is kind of a monthly. This is routine.
Okay. Also, why is the 16.9 for the general obligation so high? It shouldn't exceed over 20%. Is that something that we should be concerned about, as a comparison to water and sewer and aviation?
No. Let me give you an example. This will vary every month.
Okay.
And the reason it varies is kind of the basic reason I've given you last time, is that the variable rate is this line of credit. That all has a life expectancy of less than 1 year. Our normal debt pool has an average payoff at 11. 50% paid off at 11 years. This would be the equivalent of a construction loan for your house that they give you for 6 months. When at the end of the 6-month period you want to do a 30-year loan, because they're just two different types of loans. The variable rate is this short-term period of money in which we aggregate the money in order to have a sizable enough deal to take it to the market. So rather than doing a $13 million bond deal, we just simply get a line of credit for $13 million, but the time period that they'll give you on this type of fund is very short. They'll give you less than a year in order to go and take that out. So what we do is we try to aggregate it up something above $40 million, and then we try to aggregate it above, something above 40, which makes the economies of scale useful in putting together the lawyers and all the teams that eat up the. I mean, if you spread a lawyer's bill over a $13 million, it's the same work.
Yeah.
Over a $40 million deal versus a $13 million deal, your economies of scale on the $40 million is much better. We do pay for the line of credit, though, so you have to balance, and then we have a maximum time frame they'll loan us some money, and then we have a maximum amount. So when we look at both, if we trigger either one of those, we either have to go to the market, and we try to time it so that the market doesn't dictate to us when we're there. We try to angle it such that we're timing the market, or at least in a roundabout terms. You can kind of read the paper and figure out if it's going to go haywire or something. But this market has been extremely volatile over the last year, so timing has been tough. So, but we'll put together a deal, and then. But if you don't want to be in a position where you've used up all your line of credit or you're out of time, and you have to be in the market, and they know that.
So one more last question. For the general government, on page 3I, why is the increase in revenue so high in comparison to the estimated FY97, which is at 36,000? It went from 36 to 60.
About 18.3 million of that are the salary increases that were in the adopted budget. That's the primary increase. I mean,
does that include the 4%? It was a definite overall.
It only includes the 3. The additional 1.2 is out in the operating department.
Let me be spread across the operating department.
And I'll give a real brief one. I just want to add 20 seconds to what Mr. Kelly responded on the 20%. We have been experiencing a 3% better interest rate on our variable debt, whereas our debt would be about 6.5. We're getting it at about 3.5. We've set a target of about 20%. I'd like to have that on average. Sometime we need to be above 20 to get 20, because some of the times of the year when we fix it out, we drop below it. But 20%. At 20%, if we average for 20%, we're saving $6 million a year in interest costs. And if we're below 20, we're not saving that full 6. And I just want to point that out because that's a real significant thing. We should not be scared of the 20%. It's a hedge. We've got more than that invested short, so it's not really an issue. But something that this committee and council needs to exercise proper oversight of.
Thank you very much. There being no further discussion or comments or questions, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Sines, seconded by Councilmember Wong. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Nobody's opposed because everybody's leaving. Thank you.
de trabajo o personas que han ido a solicitar solucionar su problema de migración y se han visto envueltos en un arresto en el Departamento de Migración y en menos de tiempo, cuando menos acuerdan abrir y cerrar de ojos, ya han estado en el país de ellos. Y yo creo que eso necesito que los señores de migración den una respuesta a esto. Digo yo, para quitarle a la comunidad ese temor que ellos tienen de presentarse ante el servicio de migración.
Es muy cierto que en todos los Estados Unidos y muchos hermanos hispanos nuestros están pasando por un periodo